If you're an account manager, you already know this. You're the one keeping the business running. You own the client relationships, drive the revenue, and solve the tough problems for your customers. But here's the challenge. Most companies don't give account managers the training or recognition they deserve. That's what you'll get here on the Account Management Secrets podcast. I'm Alex Raymond, and after working with thousands of account managers, I know what separates the best from the rest. In this show, we cover exactly what you need to succeed, handling tough client conversations, driving renewals and upsells with confidence, and proving your value every single day. There's no fluff, no outdated sales tactics, just real practical strategies you can use right now to grow your accounts and build a successful career. If that sounds like what you've been looking for, hit subscribe and let's get into it. I had so much fun writing this book, The Growth Department. Hopefully you've seen on LinkedIn or the Amplify website or heard on this podcast that I just released this book. It's called The Growth Department, How Account Management and Customer Success Become the Revenue Engine. It came out on January 27th. And what I wanted to do today is share with you my thinking behind the book and go a little bit sort of behind the scenes, if you will. Not teaching the framework. I'm not teaching the whole book. I'm not going to get into all the detail that's captured in the 180 pages or so of the book. But instead, I want to give you an idea of what's behind it and what some of the key points are so that you can see my thinking and why I think this is a major contribution to the post-sales world. So over the last decade, as many of you know, I've been in the account management space. So through this podcast, through my work at Amplify, I've worked with hundreds of companies. I've had thousands of conversations with account managers. And I kept hearing the same thing over and over again. Post-sales teams like customer success and account management routinely are responsible for the vast majority of revenue, 70%, 75%, sometimes as much as 80% of revenue. They are responsible for 100% of the profit that comes through the company. And yet, a lot of these teams operate with almost no systems, no support, very little authority, very little recognition from anyone else inside the business. Like the way that I put it a lot of times, like many people inside your company don't even know what you do all day. And this was such a disconnect for me. It's been something that I've heard so many times when I thought, boy, something is really going on here. Like there's some issue at the root of this because, think about what it's like when things go well, like when you get that renewal, you get that upsell, you keep that customer, you grow that customer, nobody really notices, or maybe you just get like a pat on the back, or maybe your boss takes you out to lunch or something like that. You don't get to ring the gong and go to President's Club like a new sales. So when things go well, it's pretty quiet out there in the post-sales world. When things go poorly, like when a customer leaves or there's some sort of escalation, then, the whole world seems on fire. Everybody's focused on you. Everyone's telling you to fix it. You feel like you're getting a lot of blame. And this is so common, right? So this, by the way, if this has happened to you, you are far from alone. This is super, super common out there. And what I realized, what I started to recognize is this is not about the talent that you have. This is not about the team. This is not about the people. This is a fundamental design problem with how we have created the role. We think of post-sales as this support function instead of thinking of it as a growth function. And that's actually why I called the book The Growth Department, because I want us to reframe and shift our thinking to get out of this like post-sales is support model into thinking post-sales is growth. Post-sales is profit. Post-sales is durability for the business. And so it started to become very clear to me as I was writing the book and doing all the interviews and thinking about this and talking to people that to a large extent, we're using a model that was true in the previous century. So this is like the 1999 era. That's what I call it. And so many teams are still designed like it's 1999. It's 2026, folks, and we're still using these playbooks from 25, 27, 30 years ago, whatever it is, long time ago. And this causes a lot of stress, a lot of tension. There's a big disconnect there because the world of 1999 is gone. And we need to acknowledge that. And if we keep working the way that we have been working, we're going to find ourselves even deeper into this hole. If you look specifically at the customer success role, that role is in grave danger of not existing in 5 years, right? With AI, with business model changes, with all the stuff that's going on. This has nothing to do, again, with the quality of the people or the talent or the teams. This has to do with the fact that we simply are not designing this properly. Literally, the model doesn't work. And so I want to share with you in today's episode, like how I thought about that, how I came up with some of the potential ways to resolve that or fix that, and why this is such a big disconnect. So if you feel this mismatch, if you feel this tension, if you're aware of this gap between what you want to be doing and what you're actually doing, or how you think you can contribute to your company's success versus what you're actually getting recognized for, then understand this is a systemic issue, and this is something that specifically we are going to address in the growth department. So let's get into it. I'm psyched to share this with you. By the way, if you want to follow along, get the book. It's on Amazon. There's more information at amplifyam.com as well. So all that stuff is there for you to be able to go deeper on any of these topics here today. I'm really excited for this book to come out. So let's talk about this in a little bit more detail. The way that I created the book is I've got 4 sections. So there's 4 main sections in the book. The first part basically looks at what's going on in the world today. So I call this the post-sales tax, right? We're all paying this tax on a daily basis. And so the first 2 chapters of the book are about this tax. And the first chapter talks about the blind spots in terms of how we act and how we behave and what's happening inside the company that are costing us millions of dollars every single year. And the main blind spot there, I alluded to this earlier, I hinted toward this earlier. The main blind spot is we just have an organizational design problem around account management and customer success. For some reason, account management and customer success are considered second fiddle, right? So we're off to the side. Sales gets all the glory. We don't get the glory, even though we deliver more revenue and more profit than sales. And what happens is, therefore, we're not getting the training, we're not getting the resources, we're not getting the software systems that we might need. We're not getting recognition. We don't get paid as much either. And because of that, we essentially have this, sort of two-tiered go-to-market function where sales is up here and account management is farther down below. And that's really frustrating for people. It's a big deal. And what it means is we're not always focusing on the right targets. Like, we're not always doing the right things. We don't always have the right incentives in there. And I've talked to so many people who are aware of this problem and not necessarily doing anything about it, or don't necessarily have a way to solve that. We're kind of all too stuck, like way too stuck in the status quo. So the very first part of the book is simply acknowledging, hey, this is an issue for us. And these are things that are there. We don't have what we need to succeed. We could be punching in a different weight class. We could be doing a lot more things, but we're sort of stuck where we are today. And therefore, what can we do about it? The second part of part 1, so chapter 2, is a deep dive into the economics of how account management really works. I called this chapter the irrefutable economics of expansion. And I go into several concepts here. And again, I'm not going to share all this stuff because you can read about it in the book and it would take too long on a single podcast. But there's a couple of things that I want you to be thinking about. And I want to share with you how this can help change the strategy inside of your company and convince your executive team to get you the resources that you need. The first thing we talk about is how incredibly expensive it is to have a customer churn before they hit the payback period. So you know from listening to this podcast and just working in this world for the last few years that the payback period on new business deals just keeps stretching, just keeps getting bigger. Used to be like 18 months, now it's 24 months, and it's probably getting even higher than that on average. I remember one of the Amplify members had told me earlier this year, she told me that her payback period, she calculated it for her company, it's a services company, her payback period was 3.5 years. So what that means is if a customer doesn't stick around for more than 3.5 years, they lose money on it throughout. And I want you to have that kind of information. I want you to think about that at your company. And the irrefutable economics of expansion start with understanding, are our customers getting to the payback period? If they're not profitable for us ever, right? We literally are just losing money. We're shoveling money into an incinerator if we can't get customers to the payback period. So that's the first major concept. And I would invite you to do the research inside your company and to figure out, where are we on that scale? Because you're going to learn a lot and you're going to see how specifically you can then help the company to succeed better. So that's the first thing, is this idea of, are we reaching the payback period? The second thing is understanding the different economics around new business versus expansion versus retention when it comes to the cost of acquiring customers. And in this, we go through the data that you're probably familiar with, but we do it in a lot of detail on things like, how is it that expansion revenue is 4 times more efficient than new business? And why are retention opportunities by far the most profitable parts of the business? So we talk about that a little bit. And then the third thing that I want to share is just the fact that NRR, net revenue retention, is now something that's on everybody's mind. Everybody's thinking about NRR. Your team, your VP, your CEO, your board of investors, everyone who's out there is thinking about NRR. And there's been a really important shift and change about this over the last couple of years, the thinking around net revenue retention. And the main thing that's changed is NRR is no longer viewed as a customer success metric. It's not just something that one team owns. It actually tells you a story about the overall health of the whole company. It tells you how durable your revenue is, tells you how predictable it is, tells you how sticky your product or service is. There's a lot to NRR. And because of that, leaders are starting to pay lots and lots of attention. So this is no longer just something way down on the list in terms of the things we're looking at. NRR is often number 1, number 2, or number 3 in terms of literally the overall metrics that we are tracking as a company. And so that's the setup for the book, right? Setup for the book is, we're in this place. We don't have to be here. We can look with a lot more clarity at the economics of the business, and we can figure out how can we impact those in a positive way. So that's what I talk about. That's what I mean when I talk about getting out of this 1999 thinking, is we can't assume that renewals are just going to default. Money doesn't grow on trees. There's a whole section in the book on recurring revenue and why that's an absolute fallacy. And so all that stuff there basically is stirring up the problem, right? And this is problem identification, if you will. So that's what we're doing there. By the way, I'll just share that writing this book was super fun. I had a great time doing it. It was more rewarding than I thought it was going to be. It was a pretty considerable amount of work. So I started in June and I finished in January. So this is 7 months of writing. I spent hundreds of hours. I had a human editor. I had AI editors. I have an incredible designer who put the book together. But the main thing I had feedback and resources from this very podcast, from Account Management Secrets. So you'll see in the book that we're quoting all sorts of people who you've heard here on the show. People like Brent Adamson and Craig Rosenberg and Amanda Eddington. We are telling their stories because I've been able to listen to what they're doing and get to know these people. And we like Anthony DeShazer, for example, with how he thinks about an ownership mindset. So it was really fun to be able to do that and then pull those stories into the book itself, which is really, really fun. It was rewarding to do so. And I think you'll like that, and you'll even more appreciate the book because you're going to recognize some of the stories that are in there. So I just wanted to share that briefly in terms of, how we set this up toward the future. So the first part of the book is, hey, we're in this spot. It's structural, and there is a way out. We can solve this. We can fix it. Part 2 of the book really starts to talk about what can we do about this. And the main recommendation there, the thing that is most important for you to take away, is the mindset shift that we are not a support function. We are the growth department. So as account managers and as customer success, we are the people who help our company win. We help our company win by delivering profitable revenue back to the business. And we've got a model for that. I've got the keep, grow, no surprises model for that. We've got a way of thinking about the role. We've got a way of talking differently around that. And that's really the setup. And if there's one thing that you can start doing today inside of your company, is to start talking differently about your role. And I've got a lot of examples on how to use the right language versus the wrong language. So the language that keeps you elevated and strategic versus the language that makes you seem tactical and reactive. So we spend a lot of time talking about that. Really important for you to be showing up with the right mindset, showing up with the right lingo, talking in a certain way so that people understand, what's going on here. The other thing that I started to really look at is how much of sales is systematized. So how they have all these, they've got process and training and CRMs and a lot of operational rigor and operational discipline. And then I contrasted that with the account management and customer success world. And I hate to say it, but the distinction winds up looking kind of like the difference between the JV team and the varsity team. And in many ways, sales operates like the varsity team, right? They have process, they know where they're going, they know where they've been, they have discipline, they have rigor. There's a playbook, there's a cheat sheet. They've got the whole thing built out for them. They have an enablement team that helps them. They've got the tooling that they need. They spend tens of thousands of dollars per person on training every year. They do all this stuff to get good at their craft, to become more efficient, to be more predictable. And so that's what the sales team looks like, right? It's got a certain level of professionalism to it. And then I contrasted that in my mind to so many account management and customer success teams I've seen where you've got great people who are very well intentioned, who are working way too hard, right? Doing too much work, doing too much unsung hero type of work. And here's the result. They're still like flailing, right? We still don't have a roadmap. We still don't have a guide. We still don't have a path for us in post-sale. And as a result, we find ourselves getting burned out, and we're working too hard, and we're relying on heroics, or we're relying on individual talent to just kind of save the day. And it's much harder to predict, where are we going to come in on this renewal? Where are we going to come in on this expansion? What's the timing going to be? What's the deal size going to be? And that was a really big realization for me is how big the disconnect is. We knew that there was a disconnect in terms of perception, but I didn't realize that there was such a disconnect in terms of the systems that these different teams are using. Like when you think about it, sales, they've got Medic, MedPick, Challenger, Sandler, Miller Hyman, whatever module, whatever thing that they're using, it's there and it gets ingrained inside of the company and it becomes part of the operating system of the company itself. That does not exist on the account management side. That does not exist for post-sales. There's no Medic for post-sales. And that was a big part of the book, is for us to say, hey, why don't I start to talk about this in a way that the growth department and the Amplify method that I'll talk about in a second can become that. And let's create the roadmap. Let's create the guide here for people. So getting out of this JV mode means professionalizing, and it means bringing discipline and rigor. And a lot of people will have this misconception that if I bring in discipline, then I'm no longer creative, or I can't do the stuff I like to do, or we're going to be too rigid. And in fact, your whole team wants more structure. People benefit from structure. It allows you to operationalize the things that are, routine and need to be operationalized or automated, and allows you to focus on the things you're really, really good at, which is spending time with customers and solving problems and working with them in a deeper way. And so the big shift between the JV team and getting promoted to varsity is in how we think about systems. And this is something that another piece that I noticed around the book was leadership wants you to be doing this. Okay. Your executive team wants you to be more structured, more predictable, less reliant on heroics, right? They don't like this idea. They don't like the idea that, by the way, your executive team knows that your team is run ragged, and they know that you're relying on heroic acts to get stuff done. They don't want that. They want you to step up and bring a system to your team instead. And so the major shift here in the book is to say, let's get out of this reactive JV mode with our hair on fire all the time, and let's get into much more professionalized how the varsity team operates. And you're going to have better results when you do this. So that is how this rest of the book kind of maps out. So we then introduce some key concepts. You've heard me talk about some of these before on the podcast. Things like, what is our job? Our job is not 30 different things. It's not lots and lots of stuff. Our job is very simple as account managers. It is keep, grow, and no surprises. Keep the customers that the sales team spent so much time acquiring, grow the ones with the most opportunity, and hit our targets. Make sure there's no bad news. Make sure that we are within a certain range of our forecast. That's what no surprises means. So that's really all we need to be doing. And we overcomplicate it, but the varsity team doesn't. The varsity team says, here's exactly what we're going to be doing. Keep, grow, no surprises. And that therefore becomes the model. I want to share one thing that came up in the book that was pretty interesting for me, which was I'm aware of this tension out there in the post-sales world. And I've talked to plenty of account managers and customer success managers and leaders over the years who say things like, I really like my job because I don't have to be so involved with revenue. And I like working on the things that make the customer happy and successful, but I don't really want to be in sales. And so I get kind of squeamish around revenue. There's a lot of account managers who are kind of allergic to revenue, if you will. And I started thinking about that because I very strongly believe that the post-sales function is here to deliver profitable revenue back to the business. So revenue is in our DNA. And at the same time, I'm aware that there's this tension and there's this resistance from some people. And in my research, I was able to kind of bridge that gap or realize that it's a false distinction between the two. You might think in your mind, I'm not comfortable with revenue. What you're really saying is, I don't want to be perceived as this used car salesman type of person. I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be always calling to chase for the next deal and stuff like that. And so you might think that, but in reality, that's a false dichotomy. It's a separation that doesn't actually exist in the real world. And the way that I saw great teams overcome that is really to define in a different way how they go through the motion. So instead of post-sales always chasing revenue, the model actually is we chase value for the customer, and then we define it and we go through a series of steps, which I'm going to share with you in a second. And then that leads to revenue. And so this means that we don't have to have these ideas in conflict in our brain. We can say, yes, my job is to help the company win. I help the company win by delivering revenue. And the way I deliver revenue is I help my customer get maximum value. So I built a model called the value revenue chain. The value revenue chain basically says there's 5 steps to it: define value, create value, measure value, show value, and then earn value. The idea being, if we're really good at our jobs and we're really focused on our customers, and we're really focused on them getting the most out of working with us, As we do that and become truly customer centric and really help our customers solve problems and get their needs met, and we're able then to show that back to them in a way that they say, oh yeah, wow, I see the progress. I see what we're doing here. I see the value that's been created, and I know how to talk about that with my team. If we do all that and we create a scorecard around it, then guess what? Revenue to us becomes an inevitability, right? Revenue has to happen. If we help the customer to define a problem, understand what the value drivers are, create the value by actually doing the thing or offering the product or service, measuring the results that they're getting. We then show it back to them and they all nod their heads and agree that, yes, this is what we got. Then, of course, they're going to say, yes, we want to renew with you. Yes, we want to expand with you. Yes, we want to do more stuff. And so it was really interesting to me to realize that some people's squeamishness or lack of enthusiasm about revenue was actually misplaced. And that if you think about this as my job is to help the company win, I do that by helping my customers get value. Then my customers pay me for that value. That feels a lot better for people. And that worked together really well. So I just wanted to share that because, I learned stuff writing the book too. So this was not just, me sitting there downloading things that were already in my brain. I did a lot of talking with folks and understanding what the world actually looks like. And then came up with this value revenue chain as a way of explaining that. And so then the book gets into part 3, which is the Amplify method. The Amplify method are 4 arrows, as I like to call them, around how to really show up and get better results from your customer, for your customer, and for your company. So the Amplify method, you may have heard me talk about this on the podcast before. The Amplify method has got these 4 arrows: solve bigger problems, relentless curiosity, act like an owner, and protect your energy. And I go through each one of these and I've got stories around them, which are really cool. And I've got examples from other people who've done these things. And we show how, as a whole, these 4 arrows of the Amplify method will give you a roadmap for your work. And it will help you to get exponential growth from your customers. It will help you be more confident when you're working with them. It will help you manage your day-to-day better. And this is literally the guide for the work. So the Amplify method is the equivalent of Medic or Sandler or any of these methodologies, but it's custom designed for post-sales. And so I want you to check this out in the book. I want you to really deeply understand that, because you don't have to be winging it. You don't have to be making it up as you go along. There is a way for us to bring all these parts together. Solve bigger problems, relentless curiosity, act like an owner, and protect your energy. And again, this is not something that I just made up. I didn't pull this stuff out of thin air. The way that I got to this model, the way that this came to be, was by studying the very small number of account managers who are out there delivering huge results for their companies, right? So a lot of us, we pat ourselves on the back if we get a 10% renewal or 10% increase at renewal, or we get a customer that doubles with us, or they grow by 50%, everyone gets excited. There's a small number of account managers out there who are chasing the customers that grow by 5 times or 10 times or even more than that. And there's one particular story from someone who's been on this podcast before. Her name is Joanna Hagelberger. And there's so much that I learned from Joanna. So what Joanna did is she grew a single account. This is back when she was working for an insurance tech company called Vertifor. She grew a single account from $50,000 to $10 million, which is a 200x increase in contract value. The lifetime value of that single contract is probably north of $100 million today for a company. So she grew a very modestly sized project into one of the biggest, most profitable companies ever for her organization. And guess what? She was doing exactly what I laid out in the Amplify method. She was doing it before we called it the Amplify method, because she did this several years ago. But she was solving bigger problems by going upstream and saying, what's really going on here and how can I widen the aperture to attach to a bigger business initiative? She was showing relentless curiosity because she kept asking, Where are you trying to go? Where do you want to be in 5 years? How can we support you? She was asking these kind of questions to really figure out what was happening on the ground with the client. She was acting like an owner because she was taking accountability for the results, and she was putting herself on the same side of the table as her customer. And she was practicing protect your energy because she was just focused on the things that were going to move the needle for the client. And she was saying no to lots of other stuff internally. She was organizing the chaos around her inside her company so that she could focus on the client and their needs. And it's a great example, and it's an incredibly inspiring example. And all of us want to have customers that grow that magnitude, right? That grow that big. And she's an example of someone who did it. I'll give you a little giveaway. She did it not once, she actually did it twice for the same company. She grew another account by 25x as well. And so her discipline, plus me talking to lots of other people to learn what was going on, became the foundation for the Amplify method. And I think it's really exciting because you can put it into use right away. It's something where you get the concepts very quickly. You can go do that. The book has all the stuff you'd expect around the implementation methodology and so on and so forth. Like, that's all there within the book. You can read all that. But the main idea, you can take that today and you can start to weave that into your work. So the Amplify method then becomes, here's the guide. And of course, there's how to structure your company and your organization and your teams, and how to think about all the other stuff that you need to do, org design and segmentation and strategy and stuff like that. That's all in there as well. And so the point of this podcast was simply to give you a preview, a quick understanding of what's in this book, The Growth Department. I think this is going to be one of the major works in the post-sales world, at least in the next 5 or 10 years. There's not a lot of people, as you know, are talking about this space. And so I think it's an opportunity for us to really redefine what it is that we do and start thinking of ourselves as the growth department, as the people who deliver revenue and profits back to the business, and be proud of that, be proud of the impact that we are making. So all it takes is changing some mindset, changing some organizational design, changing how we talk about things. These are not obstacles that are too big to overcome. All of these things are challenges that we can address. I'm going to show you how. And together, I think we're building a much stronger potential for us in post-sale. So I'm really excited for the book. I hope you enjoy it. It's available on Amazon. There's also more information up on the Amplify website at amplifyam.com. Give it a read. Let me know what you think. Put a review in Amazon. Put a review on Goodreads. I hope this makes a difference for you and for your team. And we're going to be talking about this a lot in the coming weeks and months. So go grab the book. Hope you enjoy it. And we'll talk to you again next week.